We call the meeting to order today, November 13th, at the Delaney Treatment Plant, to the Town of Walpole Board of Sewer and Water Commission. 6:30 PM. We have a posted agenda. The first item is minutes. And did anybody review the minutes?
I didn't see any issue.
Okay, I had a few.
Oh, good, all right.
Actually, I'll give them to you. Give that to Bill. A few things were left out that I thought were important.
This is going to her?
No, she's got a copy.
Oh, she's got a copy.
In the first line, with the first introduction, where it says, "Notes received within 48 hours of window," I actually said, I cited the topic Darwin Common. I'm not sure the board should begin discussing on this as we receive late material within the 48-hour window. Okay? So that's being included. That was stated, but it wasn't put in the minutes. If you want to discuss this among yourselves, you may. Bill already presented this to the ZBA. That's already in the thing, but that first part isn't. Number 2 goes down to like the fifth line from the bottom where it says Mr. Fisher. Right before Mr. Fisher, Scott had pointed out something, that Darwin materials in the packet.
Where,
It says, let's see, on the bottom of
number
Three.
1?
Discussion item 1, yeah.
Page 3.
Four lines up, it says packet, Mr. Fisher. Darwin material was in their packet, period. Okay?
Fastenella requests a delay, so we are given time to review. Like, I don't know, I'm missing something. Where am I?
Page
You
3?
see it?
Are you,
Oh, you're going off the minutes.
Yeah.
I was looking at this, trying
Oh,
to
yeah, no.
find that in there. Okay, no wonder I couldn't find it.
no, number 2 is, it says,
Yes, okay.
I reported that material was not received by me until Friday late. That was not put in the minutes. And then the last thing, on page 4, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines above, it says agenda. It's just a matter of running the agenda, period. And then before the motion, Bill, you stated, "I still want to hear from the residents."
Right.
And Hassenjäger said, "Then vote, and then if you want to go ahead and have the discussion with the abutters, you can do so, and I'll go out of the room." So that was left out of the, there. So those are my amendments anyway to the minutes.
Are there any edits? If not,
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes with the items that John has mentioned. Terry, you have a copy of this?
Mhm.
And know where they fit?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I second that.
I'll update them before I post them.
It's numbered on the page. I
Yeah.
guess. Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, abstain. The 4-0-0. Okay, we have an appointment at 7 o'clock, so want to discuss correspondence?
Sounds good.
Superintendent status report.
Well, I'm just skipping around,
Here's Scott's report.
So residents' correspondence, Darwin Commons. This could,
Okay.
Oh,
Wait
Take a
a
few
second,
minutes.
wait a second.
you're going to go to correspondence?
I got a correspondence 1,
Yeah.
but it doesn't talk about
That
this.
goes with the appointment at 7.
on the agenda, on the agenda,
Yeah, but that's not marked.
well, you look under correspondence 3, then you got the old agenda. Terry
All right.
updated the agenda.
Tetra Tech is correspondence 1?
No.
No, that goes.
It's appointment one.
That goes to the appointment. 7
There
o'clock.
goes the appointment at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Tetra Tech.
It's in the description under
Yeah,
appointments.
yeah, that's what I-
Comment letter Tetra Tech on appointment 1.
Yeah. Okay. What about the superintendent's report?
Well, I was just skipping over that and going to the correspondence.
Oh, how come?
Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
I don't know. That's all right. I don't know.
If you want to do the report, I don't know, usually there's not too much there. I'd like to get this
Is
stuff out of the
Jeff
way before
showing?
7
Is
o'clock.
Is Jeff planning to come?
He is, but he might be a few minutes late. Obviously, he is a few minutes late, so.
Well, I guess, since he's the author of Correspondence
wait for
1, I
that?
would wait for him to come.
Okay.
So,
All right, go ahead.
superintendents, okay.
So, the distribution crew's been working on water leaks that were identified in the leak detection survey. There's about 10 of them. The survey is about 2/3 completed. They'll be finishing it in the spring. Outside of those leaks, we had a water main break on Squire Court. It was a circle crack on the 8-inch main. MTUs, following the same pattern, about 30 to 50 need to be replaced. We got some software issues on Mueller's end and our end this period.
So the MTU, like, what is the issue, like software issue or the?
Not giving out reads. The 30 to 50 are the ones that fail completely,
Okay.
and they have a few others that are sporadic.
Okay.
Scott, how are they doing the survey?
The leak detection survey? You
Yeah, how are
asked it
they
before.
actually doing it? Are they,
Yeah,
they're looking for surface water or?
no, it's by
Looking for,
correlation. And when the survey first came out, I think I gave you the actual packet from the vendor on how their methodology.
I never saw that.
It was in one of your packets.
Yeah, well, we should have seen the contract before. That's one of the things we should talk about. Hey, okay, so, but I think what we're interested in is how much water is unaccounted for in percentage terms?
Right.
How much is it?
Last year was, I believe, 11.4%.
11.4.
And once we get into January, we'll have this last calendar year done, and we're working on the ASR.
I can't hear what?
Once we get into January, we'll have a full calendar year, January.
Okay, now, in the water business, what's the loss usually?
You want it to be less than 10.
Huh?
You want it to be less than 10.
Okay, so it's minus 10, so we're pretty close to the average loss anyway. Okay, just curious.
So last year was better than the year before, and I think this year will be better than that one. But until the
And-
numbers are actually put on paper.
So we're looking for about, what, maybe 11, not for 11%.
You're looking for 1.5%.
Do you have any idea what the losses are?
Some of it was calibration of the source meters. Some of it was, I believe, the hydrant being used here at the DPW yard by contractors. There's a meter on that now, so every gallon that flows through that is accounted for.
Are we still checking water usage of different properties? If we see a normal use,
Yes,
do we notify them?
we do. It triggers an alert.
Because, okay, I'll talk to you about some stuff.
But the alert is tough to, you have a catastrophic leak for it to show. I mean, during this time of the year, it's 125 cubic feet. I turned the faucet on and, you know, with a gallon thing, trying to figure out, it'd take me 9 days for a leak to show. And if you
Right.
get it in one day, you've got a pipe that's broke, you've got water, you know, flowing that people will notice that, unless it's something like they left a hose on outside or something along those lines,
Or if they're away.
or they are away. The other alert is if we have 72 hours of continuous flow, that triggers an alert, and that 125 cubic feet, we changed to 250 in the summer. So, you know, if someone has a toilet that's leaking, it's never gonna trigger an alert unless it's gushing, in which case, you know, the consumer would know, I got a big problem. So that's one of the problems that I think with our alerts, and I've read their manual, and there really is not a way to get it you know, a tighter range so that you might be able to catch something other than you know, a catastrophic leak that it would be hard to miss, except for if you said you were away and didn't know.
Right.
Why 72 hours? Why not
Just-
24? I mean, somebody decided 72 hours.
I didn't see in the manual.
What's the rationale for 72
Well, this was in the
versus?
KP manual, and I didn't see a way where you could change that number. You can change the 125 cubic feet and we change it to, in the summer, to 250. And the reason it's so high is if you went something lower, we'd get flooded. We already get flooded with alerts. You know, so there's a,
Well-
it's a nice idea to be able to alert customers of leaks, but it's so primitive. It's, you know, a sledgehammer type approach as opposed to something that might look and see, what's their average usage? Oh, it's up 10% or whatever, and did it immediately go down? Okay, forget about it. No, it kept going for a while, let's flag it. I mean,
Well, the most common leak is the toilets, the tank. And if that's going for 24 hours continuously, that should be a warning. Because otherwise, what you're saying is that the consumer won't notice that for months. Until they get their bill.
It would have to be continually flushing so that you would know it, as opposed to, oh, sometimes I jiggle it and it goes away.
No, I'm saying if it's leaking steadily,
Yeah.
that's a steady leak, and that's recorded. Low-level, steady leak.
And if it saw
And if that's-
72 hours of continuous water usage, it would flag it after 72 hours.
Why 72 is my,
I don't know, I'm just telling you, that's not something, when I read the manual, it wasn't, oh, you can change this number.
no, somebody in the water department
No,
said.
no, no.
Who
The
did
KP
that?
system,
Who?
the KP system.
Then why did they? What's their rationale?
I have no idea.
Well, I think we should find out what the rationale, if there is a rationale, then that's fine, but if there isn't, we need to tighten that up.
So, question, this leak detection surveys for the whole system, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Not
a
for
different-
residential?
Yeah,
Different
that,
issue.
that's a different topic from the metering system, but it's a comprehensive leak detection survey
Okay.
that we appropriated money for this last round. There wasn't enough time to do the entire system this year because of, you know, the constraint of time with the weather. So they did as much as they could, and they'll be finishing in spring.
I have a question on that. There's 10 leaks. I mean, when we've identified, someone calls and says there's a leak, we get right on it.
Mhm.
And we got 10. Could you
they
describe some
were
of these
chasing-
leaks? Are they in areas that, you
Yeah,
know,
the
cross-country leaks or something? or-
The leaks that haven't surfaced for various reasons, but like this one on Tanglewood, they were chasing that for like 3 days.
Yeah,
It was reported as a main break, and it was actually a service, and it was further away from where
Yeah.
it was indicated, so they had to find it, and get zeroed in on it.
so they were, okay. I was just curious, because
And-
my impression is, you know, when I've ever reported a leak or whatever, they're there immediately to address it. And, you know,
Yeah,
to
they are.
find 10, it would seem that,
Yeah, they're working on, they've done Tanglewood, they've done Heather Lane, they've been working on this list.
okay, no, I'm just, I could see that they might be things that just don't surface, in which case those are the ones that just
Right.
go and,
So the other thing about the MTUs and the alerts was we had over 300 false alarms because the Mueller system went down, and the ones to clear it, and it took them over 3 days before they finally responded and cleared it, which slowed us down. We've had some server issues on our end where the server went down, it came back up, but we found out the software does not automatically restart itself, and that's been corrected on Mueller's end.
So the data is exchanged between Mueller server and our server?
There's more than one issue and more than one error, and, you know, they fix one, another one pops up.
Okay.
The raw water line cleaning project has been put out to bid. We have a bid open date of November 29th. The redundant line to central storage has also been put out to bid with an opening date of December 13th. The crew's been winterizing various properties, the cemeteries, Jarvis Farm, Adams Farm. It's not on your paperwork, I hand-wrote this in, but the membranes for the Willis plant, we expect a delivery on Monday, November 16th. To have them on site, and we're gonna bring them in, they have to be in a climate-controlled area. And we're looking at installation starting on November 27th through December 6th. That's the report.
Okay? All right, we'll move back to the correspondence. Residents' correspondence, Darwin Common. Okay, I would ask the board that we kind of follow Robert's rules here and just don't blurt out. People indicate to the chairman you want to speak, and I'll recognize you. This is a very disturbing document, to say the least. As chairman of this commission, and as a 52-year town executive and town board member, and a town father, that the town administrator would send such a toxic email to me without ever talking to me or calling me, or having no discussion, based on apparently hearsay and bad information. And he has created a very significant problem for himself and the community, the town government, by doing this. People need to understand this board is elected, we're independent. We're in the same status as the Board of Selectmen. The town administrator works for us. He's not an oligarch, he's not a king, he's not our overlord. He doesn't put a black robe on and come down and point his finger at John Hassenjaeger. This is a serious example of disrespect and of insensitivity. Someone asked me, why would they do this? And I got thinking about it. This has been a pattern. I've been here for 5 town administrators. I'll be here for the 6th. I'm not going anywhere. And I observed this life cycle of town administrators. At a certain stage, they get such control and so much power that they start to go off the rails. I remember the last town administrator, at a particular town meeting, he had an issue that he was very nervous and concerned about. And he actually brought the fire department and then the police, had them put in their dress uniforms and bring axes and rifles into town meeting, and they marched down the rows and stood facing the audience with their guns and axes. And the town administrator stood up and back of them and said, "My God, this is like Argentina or something. I've never seen such a thing." So I don't know. My answer to that is, there's been back, I guess 10, 15 years ago, when we had Jim Brady and Tom Brady were moderators. We had moderators. I've observed the moderators for 50 years as well. We always tried to have balance on town committees. We used to ask the head of the Democratic committee and the Republican committee if they had nominations. We talked to the senior center. We try to get balance and diversity on boards and commissions. And that hasn't happened. In recent years, the Republicans have been targeted and actually like flushed out of the town government. And there's a lot of good people who volunteered to serve. Unlike the town administrator and others who get paid a nice salary for doing this work, we do it voluntarily. We don't collect a penny. And I've been doing it for 52 years. There's a lot of good people that I'm thinking about. People like Richard Peelan, Vic Senna, Tom Brown, Ann Ragasta, Maura Clow, John Leith. so many, John Valancourt, Bob Damish. I could think of so many, Harry Bracady, so many people who have volunteered and are Republicans and have been pushed out. And I couldn't help but think this must be a political thing that is being hatched against me because it has no substance to it. So I'm going to say, first off, that for the last 9 years, we've been told that affordable housing projects were the exclusive domain of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that we or the planning board or the other boards don't get to vote or have public hearings on these. We can simply read and make comments and refer those comments over to the Zoning Board of Appeals that acts on behalf of all the boards. So we are advisory. And it's interesting that most of the affordable housing projects have come in and presented, and we've given comments as we did on Darwin Lane. And even had dialogue back and forth. Now, for some reason, the town administrator made these allegations that I previously, well, he says I own property on Darwin Lane and on Pinnacle Drive, and I participated in discussions about those, which is not true. And I would say that we have had the Darwin Lane example came before us first with John Spillane, and I recused myself and went out of the room, and I don't know what happened in the room because it wasn't in there. That was a preliminary plan. I think in the definitive stage, it came to us. I was chairman. Pradeep took over. I recused myself and went out of the room. You made comments and submitted them to the zoning board. And there was an amendment apparently to the plan. And I don't think it was last spring, came back, or it could have been the summer, that came back and there was asked to comment again. And I went out of the room. Pradeep handled that. So that's the discussions of Darwin Lane. Wall Street Development is the contract owner of Darwin Lane. But I have not, and I said from the very beginning, I won't vote on this, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to enter in discussions, and I'm going to recuse myself when you have hearings, or not hearings, but discussions about the project itself. So I certainly haven't done that. He cites Pinnacle Drive, which is a property I did own, and Wall Street Development owns that property outright. It has for a long time. Had it under ownership contract for years. And that property is already approved by Sewer and Water. It's a pre-existing approval. It was approved in 2002, so it already has sewer and water connections. He has no reason to be in the Sewer and Water Department, no reason to be before this board. So that's a totally fallacious allegation that Mr. Johnson has made. It has no basis whatsoever. So he goes on, but I want to make sure that he goes on to talk about our last meeting, the 23rd. And on the 23rd, we began that, by the way, on the 23rd, that would be like the fourth time now that discussion Darwin Lane came up. What was interesting about that is that during the summer, both Applebee's and Wall Street were trying to get appointments with us. And they contacted me and said, trying to get on your agenda. They had different reasons for doing that, but they were having pushback. So I mentioned to the DPW director that they should get them appointed. We missed a couple of meetings, but they should put them on the agenda because one, the commercial realtor, they usually have it, if he has a customer for his site and he wants to try to get some deal with the town, he has a limited window of time before the buyer or the tenant walks and just goes someplace else. So he was under a lot of stress trying to get his tenant and keep him in hold while he talked to the sewer and water and gave us a proposal. And that was frustrating. The fact that I served on the Economic Development Commission for 25 years, and we tried like hell to bring businesses and tax base to the town of Walpole. And it was a tough job because we have a very weird permitting system compared to other towns. And we haven't done, the town administration has nothing to be proud of there. We have Production Road, we have very little other than Walmart and the Walpole Mall. If you look at a town like Westwood, it has University Station, it has University Ave and Westwood Station and Route 1 Auto Mile and Norwood and stuff. Our neighbors have done a lot better in business. So I don't take this thing, business people are aliens or we're supposed to be tough to the business people and not communicate with them. And the fact that I knew Mr. Wailuka, and he helped us, he tried to put a hotel in Walpole. Walpole turned him down, but he spent a lot of money and effort trying to improve the tax base of Walpole. So, I don't know, in this letter, he makes that as a negative, that I tried to help Mr. Luca get an appointment with the Sewer and Water Commission. Well, I thought that was my job. So, this is kind of nutty, actually, and the more I think about it. And Mr. Wailuka was trying to make an offer to you, as you people well know. And he was trying to get back to make his final offer because I think he had time pressure as to when he could do it, and he couldn't do it. And then he told me, I believe he hired a lawyer to go and meet with the DPW director to get his proposal presented to us, and it still didn't get presented to us. So somehow that makes me guilty of some kind of ethical standard. I beg to differ. That's a dark mark on the town manager. So then he makes allegations that I participated in the meeting, our last meeting, and that there was a discussion of the project itself, of the Darwin Common Project, and that I participated and moderated it, which is not true either. From the very beginning, I tried to raise the question that I was confused because I thought when I got the material late. I got the material on Friday. I'm supposed to get the material early and approve new items for the agenda. I never approved that for the agenda. No one ever told me it was going to be on the agenda. So I didn't find out till after the 48-hour window that was on the agenda. And I assumed it was the Wall Street Development who'd been asking through the summer to get an appointment, that they were on there. But it turned out that wasn't them at all. They were not notified. And it was the appointment of we don't know who. Because when I asked, they didn't know who put it on. It was three reports and no purpose or objective or question or no submitter. I wouldn't, if I had been asked, I wouldn't have approved that until I knew who the submitter is. So from my point of view, that wasn't for the beginning, wasn't rightly before us because it was not within the 48 hours. The chairman hadn't approved it not being on the agenda, and the chairman hadn't been informed about it to being proposed to be on the agenda, and there was no legitimate source for it. I could go on that point, but so I introduced this request for a discussion and suggested it may not properly be for us. And I did say, if you want to go ahead and talk about it, I'll go out of the room. But Mr. Fasanello correctly suggested, why don't we postpone this and we find out what all this material is. And if we're going to have a discussion of someone's project, they should be here. They shouldn't be, I call that a kangaroo court. Kangaroo court is when and the government does this, these politicians, they're pretty sneaky. They love setting up a hearing or doing something over the holiday, or they send a notice so only certain parties get it, the other people don't get it. Someone from the solar group that was opposing the solar in Norfolk County, up north in North Walpole, told me that they weren't informed of the last meetings or something when the decisions were made, and they were kind of left out, and the meeting room was only the proponents. So, you know, this is not, it's not cricket to schedule a debate or a discussion about somebody's project and not have the party know that you're having the hearing when they've been trying to get in front of CU for a couple of months. So Mr. Johnson's going to have to explain that to me. Now, I'm sorry that you're exasperated. But I'm extremely disappointed. And by the way, when we talk about the image of conflict, now we had our discussion, and we voted, and Bill was told at the end, if Bill voted one way, then we would have had the discussion. I would have gone out of the room, but we wound up working it out, so you voted the other way, and now we have that on the agenda at 7 o'clock tonight, which is in about 2 minutes. So that apparently worked out okay. But this letter is toxic, and all the innuendo about all the things that took place at that meeting where you were discussing whether or not you should rightly take the topic up. And I was trying to explain to you that I didn't think it was properly before us, and that you shouldn't ever have
John,
a project discussion when both parties are not there.
I know you're upset about the letter, but, you know, the Ethics Committee cleared you. So that's the big thing here. So I know that you feel lousy about this letter, and when I got it, my concern was it's from Jeffrey Fisher, one of our commissioners. And Commissioner Fisher, why did I get this?
I didn't realize,
Why does it say from Jeffrey Fisher?
because I asked that it be put on the agenda to discuss.
Well, but you did it a strange way, because it's sent to all these people,
The people that were on the.
okay? And these people are not people who would put it on the agenda, okay? And I just don't understand. And it says at the end, I know Jim requested it below. So why are you doing that also? That's what I don't understand. But anyway, you have been cleared by the Ethics Commission, and that's
Well-
something important.
Well, that's a confidential letter, and I'm not gonna, I do have that letter. But that's not the point, really. It's the insult, the injury to me, my reputation. I own two things here. I own my personal reputation, and I own the history of the two pieces of property that I used to own in Walpole. Okay? And I'll speak about those anytime I want, in front of anybody. I don't care what kind of rules you're talking about. I own them. No one else does. So I own my history, and I own my reputation. And people in the audience may not know it, but I have a rich history of being a professor, of being on all kinds of state agencies and organizations and boards. I was on the National Consumer Law Foundation Board. I was on the Attorney General Robert Quinn's Consumer Protection Division as an advisor and director. I worked for Governor Dukakis in the consumer affairs field. I'm very offended. I've written a lot of consumer legislation, and I take pride in my reputation. I don't like being besmirched and being insulted like this unnecessarily. So I think one lesson we can take from this, and I'll get to the appointment. I don't want to babble on here, but just to be clear, so members know, my view of the policy is on our agenda is that I have given Scott flexibility to place minutes, his status reports, and old business of standard nature on the agenda and recurring items without the chairman's review. But for appointments and project discussions and new business that are idiosyncratic or new, he must have approval. And there must be a valid request from an identified requesting source, and the chair must approve that 48 business hours before the desired meeting. Items that do not have the needed chairman approval or have not arrived in time for approval should not be on the current agenda, but can be proposed for the next regular meeting. If a third party or requesting party seeks to discuss an entity, department, or project, the commission staff must ensure that both parties are copied, notified, and requested at the designated time and date of the scheduled appointment so that they may attend. Now, these rules weren't followed in this particular case, but I hope they are going to be followed in the future. And that would give Terry adequate time. She would appreciate things probably Thursday early, Terry, right? Yeah. Okay, I guess I'll stop. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I just have a question, and I recall on numerous occasions where you have left the room, you would use the term contract owner of Darwin Lane. The assessor's database lists you as the owner. Is there a difference between contract owner and
Yeah, what
the owner?
the assessor's office is a hearsay organization. They're not a lawyer. What they do is they handle second and third hand information from the Registry of Deeds. They're not up to date, and they only get what the computer sends them. So that a contract owner is somebody who has a locked-in responsibility to complete a purchase. And there could be a caveat in that if the final permit or something didn't happen, they have a way to back out. But other than that, they're locked in to buy the property, and they assume all the ownership rights. So I can't tell them anything. So if they did one house, 3 houses, or a gun range, or a horse farm, it's up to them.
So there is a possibility that the land would end up back in your ownership if...
At their discretion only under certain limited
So
circumstances.
there would be some, okay, so that's,
Not my intent.
well, who pays the property tax, I guess? Who gets the bill? Well, yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, get a
And I
lawyer,
would suggest-
get a lawyer and ask them. I'm not gonna
Well,
give you, I'm telling you, that's what it is. It's the industry. If you talk to anybody who's in construction or
Yeah.
development or building, they'll tell you that.
I guess
That's
my
the way business
suggestion...
is done, because
My
of the nature
suggestion,
of
John,
it.
would be, even as long as there is some extreme, condition where you could end up being back, it would be probably, my suggestion
Yeah,
would...
but that
And it
would-
would be your call, but that would be a reason to step down, and you have stepped down. I was kind of surprised on the last meeting that you hadn't, but...
Well, because I was moderating the meeting and we weren't discussing, I'll say Darwin Lane all day long. That's not discussing Lou Petrosi's project. We never discussed the project. You had a monologue,
well,
Patrick kept trying to stop you and have you vote on his motion to continue the meeting and have the discussion at the
Well,
next
the-
meeting, and you
the-
kept going on.
The
But that was
discussion
your statement. That
item
was
in
not
our
a
minutes that was
that
approved
wasn't a
is
that
Darwin
wasn't a
Commons
discussion,
40B
Bill.
project as opposed to just Darwin Lane as a street that happens to be in Walpole. So you
I'll say,
cleared up my-
I'll say, as a chair, I'll say Darwin Lane 40B project, so what? That isn't discussing the project. I'm sorry, you don't understand that.
I guess I
That's a
don't
name.
understand that. Yeah. But you've cleared up
Discussing
my...
the project would be get into the plans and talk about whatever it is,
You've
which I
cleared
don't
up
even know what it is.
my question regarding what contract ownership meant. And like I say, my thought would be as long as there was a possibility that I would have thought that you would have excused yourself just as you had in the past. But you've cleared it up, John.
Okay, but since you said that, I think that whole situation was an ambush. It was a political ambush. They were trying to trick me into, because the chairman not passing it off fast enough so that they could make these false allegations. And the whole thing, far as I'm concerned, is a nullity, because it didn't meet any of the standards of being on the agenda, and it was improperly framed without having 2 parties here. So, and I don't think any judge is gonna go against that. And I would just say further, like, on the Mr. Wailuka thing, I have not done financial business with Mr. Wailuka, as was alleged in the administrative letter either. Because my wife is a realtor and he's a realtor, they have made a transaction together among themselves, but that had nothing to do with me. And I've never exchanged any money with him, but I've encouraged him because he has tried diligently to bring business to Walpole. And I realize you have a position to protect our water and to negotiate a good deal if you're gonna do a deal with a businessman like him. And I said from the beginning, I know David Waluka when he first came with the hotel, and I won't vote on his thing, and I'll abstain, but, you should, that doesn't mean you can't give him an appointment to be here. So that's it, I guess. We have a 7 o'clock appointment, if you, your ears are ready for some quiet. Wall Street Development?
That was very entertaining, thank you. My name's Lou Petrosi. I'm here representing Wall Street Development Corp. I'm the president of Wall Street Development Corp. As you folks probably know, that we have a contract to purchase the property off of Darwin Lane, consisting of approximately 3.45 acres. And it's our intention, we filed an application for a comprehensive permit with the zoning board or with the town to construct a 28-unit townhouse development on the property. So over the past few months, it is true that I've requested many times to appear before this board, given the nature of the property and the proximity to the town's water resource area. We felt it was important for us to come to this board to discuss the project and provide assurances to the commissioners that we are complying with every aspect of both the state regulation and the town's regulations relative to development in the water resource overlay district. So we have had several meetings with the zoning board, and the board is currently considering lots of information that we've submitted, and both being reviewed by the town's peer review consultant. At the last meeting, Mr. Abbott appeared and gave testimony as to somewhat of the history of the property. And some of you probably know that over the past several years that the property owners have offered this property for purchase by the town. The most recent opportunity for the town was back in 2019, and the town, both the selectmen and the finance committee and this board, decided not to exercise any kind of negotiation or enter into any agreement to purchase the property. So that's when we, Wall Street Development Corp., had entered into the picture, and we filed our applications to the zoning board, and we've designed a project now that's has been through its initial design and is now being reviewed by the town's, the zoning board's peer reviewer, Tetra Tech. I have with me tonight John Glosser from Glosser Engineering. He's the project design engineer. And I think it's important to this commission to discuss the project and all of the aspects of the project that are going to ensure that there is no possible adverse impact on the town's water resource area, the well. I think it's well number 5 that we've been talking about. So with that, I'd like to, if there aren't any other questions for me, to turn it over to John Glosser and have him discuss the projects from soup to nuts.
We have a question from.
Yeah, I just want to clear one thing. You are correct that there was an article on the town meeting warrant, and the request was for no action. It's not correct not to say that we were, or to leave the impression that, yes, we were offered the chance to purchase the property. We did have extensive negotiation. We couldn't come up with an agreement on price. We attempted to come up with, could we exchange lots, and this is something you're aware of because I brought it up at the ZBA meeting that you referred to. And that didn't work out. We weren't able to swap the land. There was some parcels were identified, and they weren't really a match as far as the owner was concerned. Okay, that's fine. But even then, it wouldn't have been an easy process because one would have had to, the town would have had to declare the property surplus, and anybody could have bid on it as opposed to being able to say, current owner,
Well-
will you take this versus that?
Well,
We
from-
also, we did make a number of financial offers, none of which were accepted, and the current owner didn't have to accept any of our offers. We also suggested that would he reduce the number of buildings from 27. We suggested more homes that are in, similar to what's currently on Darwin Lane. And the developer, but the owner wasn't available. I just want to make it clear on the record, as I did at the Finance Committee, that there was negotiation, and when it came to the town meeting, we said no action. It was not an indication of not an interest to acquire the property. There was just, we could not come to an agreement to acquire the property.
Well, not to disrespect what you're saying, but, I've done quite a bit of research on the dialogue that was engaged in with the town and the property owner. I would say that from my reading of the dialogue, that there wasn't a significant interest in the property and didn't feel that it was a significant importance to entertain a purchase price that was, I believe, $371,000 in 2019. So, you can argue all day long about whether or not there's a value associated with that property. The town can only make the determination over the value of the property being not developed versus being developed under the rules and regulations that we have. And if the town and this commission or the selectmen or whoever was involved didn't feel that $371,000 was fair enough price, or that there was some highway robbery going around or leverage or anything like that, people at that time, and you would admit, they knew that there was me or someone standing on the sidelines ready to proceed in the event that the town would not engage. The town was fully aware of the situation, and they knew exactly what was looming. And so I believe the town may have offered $150,000. So the appraisal came in for significantly higher than that. And I would say just candidly that it was not a priority for the town to purchase this property. So with that,
And I understand you've done some research. All I would add is, I was there.
I've watched all the videotape, I've got all the minutes of the meetings. I don't wanna discuss the semantics of why and how or what the negotiations were. It's not my business. It's none of my business, to be honest with you, but
My
I don't want,
purpose was just to clarify.
I just don't want to have misinformation stated in a public hearing that has not been verified or been vetted, let's call it. And so I thought that was unfair to us. I thought your comments were unfair to us as the applicant in a public hearing for you to make those representations without. And you can watch the
Statement that you had made.
you can watch the videotape yourself. I don't have to tell you what your words were, but anyways, we're here simply to explain to the commission of the project design, the measures that we're taking to ensure that the water quality is not affected, and that to raise we've received your comment letters from 3 or 4 prior meetings where you've reviewed the project. And even in any of those letters or comments that weren't significant concern over what we were proposing to do. But we're going, I think you'll see that we're going extra, making extra measures to ensure that we're protecting the water supply of well number 5. And so I'll turn it over to John Glosser. And by the way, just for the record, I want you to know that we did propose 12 single families on the property. We proposed 5 single families on the property, and not one person on this commission wrote a letter saying we support that. In fact, nobody supported it, not even the neighbors, nobody supported
Mr.
it.
Lou, can we keep the
So,
discussion?
in any case, yes, I
Let's
agree
keep
with
the
you.
discussion
So,
related to-
with that, I'm gonna turn this over to John Glosser, who's gonna go over the project.
Yeah.
No, 1 second, here's a Commissioner
Um,
Costello has a question. for you.
Sure.
25 years ago, we had a report done by Weston and Sampson about what we should do in the future to protect our water. And basically, they pointed out 2 parcels that we should be interested in. One was Jarvis Farm, which we bought, and we own it. The Sewer and Water Commission, it wasn't bought by the taxpayers, it was bought by the Sewer and Water Commission ratepayers. Okay, so we have that piece. The second piece was the piece we're talking about right now. And when it did come up, and it was offered to us, we did our best to offer a fair price according to what would we consider to be a fair price for him, or them, and the ratepayers. Because we figured the commission was gonna have to buy this too. Anyway, it did not happen. But we were very, very interested in this piece. As a matter of fact, at one point in time, we took a piece of an adjacent property that was within 100 feet of this well. And we actually took that, and that belongs to the town also. So, just to make sure
yeah, no,
that you understand
yeah,
that this is a vital piece of our water protection.
Well, quite
Program.
frankly, the whole Darwin Lane parcel of land that was developed in the 90s and early 2000s, I mean, quite frankly, this is in the same proximity as all the other parcels, Eleanor Road and all those other side streets that are off of Common Street. So I understand the significance of what that report may have indicated, which, I'm in the real estate development business. And when we see a piece of property that is vital to a project or vital to self-interest or, to protect the nature of a development, that we pay a premium for it. We pay extra for it. So, quite frankly, I don't really know what happened in terms of the negotiations. It's none of my business. All I'm saying is that please don't go to a public hearing and throw things out that are unsubstantiated or vetted in a way that is a fair and reasonable representation of what happened, because it's not like somebody turned a deaf ear to the concerns of the town. They were recognized what was of interest to the town, and they just simply, the 2 parties could not come together on a price. It wasn't vindictive, it wasn't adversarial, it's just, in a real estate transaction, it just didn't happen for whatever reason. But that should not negatively impact our development, provided that we are complying with the rules and regulations of the state regulations, the drinking water regulations, and the town's Water Resource Overlay Protection District regulations, which, as you folks know, there have been many, many projects, Darwin Lane being one, that's in that area that was permitted without any problems. So I don't feel like our project should be treated any differently than that, or that the standards for evaluation should change. We're complying with the regulations and going above and beyond what the regulations require. So I'll let John Glosser explain the project, and hopefully that will give you folks a better understanding of what we're proposing. And happy to answer any questions, after that if it becomes necessary. So, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Glosser. It's been quite a while since you were before us, and you're looking well, and
You are too.
good luck to you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Fasanello, and members of the board. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is John Glosser, and I own an engineering company, Glosser Engineering. It's at 46 East Street in East Walpole. And as Mr. Petrozzi explained, I'm working for him on this project at the end of Darwin Lane. Now, usually I would explain, if you want me to, the location, the topography, the soil types. If you want me to go through all of that stuff, I can, but I'm going to guess that most of the members, if not all, already have an idea of that. But if you'd like me to explain that to you, I can. No? Okay. But I will explain this then, just quickly. I do have, I thought I knew this. So I have the full set of plans, Mr. Chairman, but as you may realize, we're in the process of making some revisions to the plans based on the Tetra Tech review letter.
Maybe you could put it just in front of the, so it could be on the camera, John.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, it's not really anything all that technical, but it's a little bit different, not much, than what you have in your,
Can you get a good view of it? Okay, thanks.
and it's a little bit different than what you probably have seen to date. So this is a work in progress right now. My draftsman who's doing this has had some, since COVID, has had some respiratory problems and he's been off a bit, but he's in now, we're working on it. Just the biggest difference here is that Tetra Tech, Sean Reardon, professional engineer from Tetra Tech, I think he's one of their vice presidents, suggested that we reduce to the maximum extent practicable or possible the amount of impervious here, and he's talking about the pavement. So we've moved all of the buildings, so they're, wherever possible, they're within 20 feet of the edge of the pavement, so that we're just going to have 2 outdoor 20-foot long parking spaces at each unit. A few of them, just because of the way the lot's shaped, are still a little bit longer. But we've reduced that. We had some visitor parking. The recommendation was to get rid of those. Each one of these units will have 4 parking spaces because they have 2-car garages. So each one has 2 cars within the garages and 2 cars outside of the garages, and no more. To create this project, we're going to construct an access driveway of about 560 feet in length. So that includes the driveway coming in from Darwin Lane, and then how the driveway is turning to the left and the right as you're looking at it, and ending with the cul-de-sac. So it's a total of 560 feet of pavement, 24 feet wide, and then you do have the cul-de-sacs at the end. The project will be connected to municipal sewer. There's sewer in Darwin Lane. We'll have to pump up into that sewer. Our initial, or my initial recommendation to my client was to contact FR Mahoney. We do a lot of work with them. We've done a lot of work with them here in Walpole to design the pump system for them. We would prefer that it be a grinder pump. In fact, they came up with one that, these grinder pumps, you have to have at least 2 pumps here because it's multi-units. And they actually put a 3rd pump in there. But That's our preference. I think your superintendent has a different idea, but we're willing to do whatever the commission and your superintendent asks us to do, as long as it's reasonable. You guys were asking, or he was asking about something similar that as at the end of Eleanor Road, where the pump and the motors and everything are at grade. The reason we don't like that is because now you bring the sewage up to the ground and then you put it back into the ground, and that's a place where it can leak out and cause problems. We would prefer a grinder pump, either with backup generator or one-day storage in a tank, or both of those if you want to have belt and suspenders. But it doesn't really matter. We've already told FR Mahoney to start looking at whatever option the town sewer and water superintendent has asked for. We'd also be connecting to the town's water system, extending the 8-inch main into this. Wouldn't be your main, but it would be an 8-inch pipe because these buildings have to be sprinklered. So each one of these buildings is going to have domestic service going into each unit, and then a fire service that would be through utility room, and then fire service going into each unit. There's gas here, so we'll be extending the gas into the site, and all of these units will be connected to Eversource gas. So there's no oil tanks or anything like that. And so the other thing I want to, and I'm just going to hand these out, okay, because I think there's might be a little bit of
How many do you have, John?
I think there's 7 or I think there's 8 of those
Okay.
there.
There's 3 left. 2 of you and one extra.
So this is the town's this is a portion of the town's zoning, right? So this is section 12, the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. So I printed this right off of the town's website. If you go to the zoning board, they have the latest regulations on their website. I think it's spring of 2023. So these are what's online, what the town is required to do, the building inspector, the zoning board of appeals, the planning board, whoever, as far as everything up until the spring of 2023. So this property is in residential B zoning, and it's also in area 1, right, of the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. So your Water Resource Protection Overlay District is broken up into 4 areas, essentially. 1, which is areas that are near the well and are providing water sort of directly towards and into the well. 2, which are areas that are potential areas for wells. 3, which are areas that are providing underground or groundwater into 2 and into 1 and towards the wells. And then 4 then is providing surface water and other water towards the wells. So this is in area 1. So in area 1 and in area 2 and in area 3 and in area 4, and I will read it here. This is section 12, whatever it is, C. Each of the following shall require a special permit from the planning board. Any residential use that will render impervious more than 15% or 2,500 square feet of any lot, whichever is greater. So my point is, the reason I point that out is residential use is allowed in Area 1. It is not prohibited in Area 1. And in fact, I know of at least one other condominium project that was probably done around 2000 or so, maybe even later, maybe 2005, that's in Area 1. And that is near the intersection of South Street and Oak Street, just as you're heading up towards 1A. Now, I can't tell you that it was Area 1 when it was permitted, because I think your areas may have changed a little when they put a well or something
Might have been
along.
the Ponset 1 and 2, which would have brought.
Yeah, that might have brought them in.
Brought into that area.
Right, but it currently exists in Area 1.
Right.
There are also a number of, believe it or not, commercial projects in Area 1 and in Area 2, which are not allowed by zoning. So how they got approved, I'm not sure. They may have been grandfathered. There may be some other reason. We have a thing called the merger provision in zoning, which but I thought that only went to residential. So anyway, I don't really know how those got permitted, but just to go further, there's plenty of commercial and residential development in areas 3 and 4. Now, the only difference between areas 3 and 4 versus areas 1 and 2 for permitting, for getting a special permit, is that 3 and 4 allow commercial development, 1 and 2 don't. So as long as you meet the residential is an allowed use. The residential isn't what triggers this special permit, which we've been talking about with the zoning board. What triggers the special permit is covering more than 15% of the area with impervious cover, with rooftop or paved roadway. So it's a special permit, so what the town does, right, through town meeting and their zone and stuff, is, for a special permit, is they give you requirements that you have to meet, so that and now it used to be the zoning board, now it's the planning board, so that they can issue a special permit. And I'm just gonna boil it down, so I just kind of boiled it down on page 87 here, because a lot of the requirements actually go to commercial development, not necessarily to residential development. But we can talk about it a little more, but after I read these. So here are the procedures for issuance of a special permit, and you can read them all, but I highlighted number 3. A complete list of all chemicals, pesticides, fuels, and other potential toxic or hazardous materials to be used or stored on the premises in amounts greater than normal household quantities. Well, we're going to work with you guys and the zoning board and everybody else. I mean, obviously the argument is, well, they're houses, so there's nothing in greater than household quantities, but you know, we can work with you, and I can tell you why I think that this is probably something that is fairly can be fairly well regulated, and not only that, you can be assured that the regulations are going to be applied and followed. And I'll tell you why in 1 second. And then the next thing it says is, where applicable, all necessary engineering reports that demonstrate compliance with the Massachusetts Stormwater Policy as amended. So that was, that set of computations and the stormwater management report was done by myself and was submitted to the zoning board and then passed on to Tetra Tech for them to review. And then the final one is analysis by technically qualified experts such as a registered professional engineer certifying the integrity of the underlying groundwater resource will not be degraded. Now, there's 2 things about that. First of all, I usually don't do that. I usually, when I do these things, and I've done a number of them, in Walpole. As I said, I did the one at the corner of Oak and South. I did, the Rojo Car Wash. I did where they're doing the veterinary hospital at the corner of Fox Hill Drive and Route 1. I did where at the end of Common Street, the end of Old Post Road in Route 1, where the Dunkin' Donuts is, and the Jersey Mike's, and across from McMorgan's. I did on West Street, Musto, Sal Musto there, Sal Corp. So I've done a bunch of them. But I usually leave this last part off to someone who knows more about hazardous waste, chemicals, containment, somebody who's a little bit more on that side of the job. It does say it can be done by a professional engineer, and I have done it on simple ones, but I usually have someone else do that. So I explained that to my client, and he hired a company, Geoscience, and so they are producing the document, right? And I explained to my client that, whoever is going to do it has to look through this and, do exactly what it says, and then get that document into the hands of the review people. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So when Tetra Tech saw my submission with my stormwater report, we still have the things that are required in the stormwater report, which are like a construction period, pollution prevention plan, long-term pollution prevention plan, but it didn't have this. So that's why, and I'm putting words in his mouth, but as far as I can tell, and we've already met with him, with Sean Reardon, but that's why he put that sentence in there about the application not meeting the local standards and therefore not meeting the stormwater management regulations and whatever else he said. So that's what was missing. He's going to get that. We would like to talk to you a little bit about that. Because the whole idea here is to identify potential pollutants that would be at the site. Now, some of them are pretty simple, right? Oil comes off of cars, maybe gasoline, antifreeze, grease, others, fertilizer put on lawns. Another thing that this Geoscience has to keep in mind is when they're building the project, right? There's adhesives that the builders, the people use. There's paint, varnish, all sort of that stuff. That all needs to be identified, and then it needs to be controlled so it doesn't get out into the environment. All of that stuff, believe it or not, is handled at a whole other level, which is the Stormwater Prevention Pollution Plan, right? The SWIP, the NIPDES permit, all that stuff is in there. That's a federal permit, but I'm just going to tell you from my experience, it's better if we keep an eye on these guys, because we don't want any of that stuff to get out into the environment. We want to make sure that that's all contained. So that's a matter of having a construction manager, having somebody who's going to report, an honest person, a person who can be held responsible if something goes wrong, and he can report to you guys, to the zoning board, to whoever, feels that they're the ones that, need to get this information. And I think that's a fairly simple thing to do. To, put a hammer essentially in whatever approvals are given to make sure that these things get done. And then once the condominium is built and occupied, now you're going to have a condominium association that runs essentially under a set of regulations. And again, those things can be put into their regulations. I know that the stormwater stuff nowadays always goes in their regulations. But that's why I say you, and even myself, right, I live here in town, would be better served if there was someone like a geoscience, and even you guys have more, have experience with this, with, John, or whoever it is, did you think about this? Did you think about that? Some of the things are pretty obvious, but not everything is obvious. So I think if you get all of that stuff in the condominium documents, all of that stuff in the construction documents, and then any other place you think these things need to be controlled, my personal opinion, and I know it would be better, it would be better if nothing happened there, right? But I don't think that's going to happen. So, I think the whole idea is to, really tighten up as much as possible, which I think is everything here, and get it in documents, get it in regulations, get it in so that it have people who are going to be responsible and handle it that way. I mean, if you think about it, and I know I'll get some maybe raised eyebrows, but if you have a condominium association, you're much less likely to have pollution than if you have a single-family house. And I know people might not believe me, but people in a single-family house, there's no condominium association, there's no requirement for some guy to come around and, walk around your exterior of your condominium and see if there's any, junk lying around or pails with, no lids or whatever. But, for a condominium, there can be. I'm sure in plenty of places there is. I know some we've done. They've been pretty strict, and that's under the stormwater management regulations. So this goes to another level because you have the stormwater management regulations, and then you have your requirements in the zoning for a special permit. So, that would be my sort of take on this. I mean, my job here really was to draw up a plan, to do the roadway, the parking, where the buildings are gonna go, do the stormwater, show the sewer and water connections. But as far as, and I'm not passing this off because I don't want to do it, I'm passing it off because I think there are people who are a lot smarter than me who know about this stuff, and that is about the control, the source control of the potential pollutants. So if you have any other questions about it, I can answer them, I believe.
Yeah, I do have a question. I'm concerned about like you say, the automobiles and the driveways and the 4 cars that could be there. All that stuff from that paved area, how is that controlled? Is that all going down away from the aquifer? I know the sewage can be pumped away. How do you stop all the surface water from running down the slope into the Area 1?
So we don't really control in the proposed condition, we don't really control the surface water, and I'll tell you why. Because in the existing condition, there is very little, if no runoff. I don't obviously have the...
Yeah, but that's because it's not developed. And
Right.
here's the
So-
second thing, John, then I'll let you
Okay.
go. In New England, we have snow and ice,
Yeah,
and you have to take care of that.
right.
And you need chemicals to take care of that, especially ice. And that's going to start to go someplace. That's not there now. So, but that's going to be there, because you have to control that. People will be in trouble if you don't. So there's a whole bunch of things like that
Okay.
don't exist now but will exist, and I don't quite see how that's going to be taken care of.
So let's go, I'm gonna go back to your very first one, is the grease and antifreeze and things like that. So basically, you know, we call those floatables, right? So they float on top of water. So what happens is, okay, I'm only trained in doing what the DEP sort of trained us to do.
You know, some of it floats and some of it doesn't.
Okay, so all of the water from the paved areas goes in on this project and on just about every project that we do now, that most towns have us, are subject to the DEP stormwater management regulations, whether it's triggered by wetlands, but now every town has sort of picked it up through their zoning that they require it anyway, whether you're within 100 feet of wetlands or not. We're not within 100 feet of wetlands, but Walpole's requiring it, okay? So, first stop for that water, after it's running off of the pavement, is a catch basin. Catch basin has a deep sump. The deep sump is going to capture not only things that drop to the bottom, but it's going to capture things that float. And the way it does that is we put a snout, right, which is basically turning that pipe down, kind of like a septic tank. So the water rushes in there, things float to the top, they can't get out of the catch basin. So the next, now that water runs out of that pipe and it has to run into some sort of water quality device. So we've designed storm scepters here. So each one of the sort of the treatment trains has a storm scepter. The storm scepter also takes the heavy material that's washed in the water out, and it also takes floatables out. And then after that, the water is going to run into an infiltration device. So under the, right here, under the access road, there's an infiltration basin, which is essentially a whole series of 4x4 galleys. Now, the first set of galleys that it runs into are going to capture 1 inch of water, and there's going to be essentially like filter fabric that holds back even more solids. So the reason we want to get rid of the solids is because, right, in nature, bacteria need something to latch onto. So the more solids you can get rid of, the less bacteria you have in the flow of water. And then after that, the rest of the water is going into that infiltration basin. So what happens is essentially up to a 10-year storm, all of that water goes into the ground. After a 10-year storm, the way it's designed right now is there's an outflow here that's actually directed away from the wells and towards some wetlands in some low areas that are on the other side of, you know, that like gravel driveway that goes in and I think eventually goes up to Jarvis Farm. It's kind of running along the easement there. It's going to go in there. So that is how the runoff from the roadway and from the parking areas is treated. The water from the rooftops of the house goes right in, from the buildings goes right into the infiltration areas, because that water, by DEP's definition, is essentially clean water. Doesn't have any, doesn't have copious amounts of suspended solids, and didn't really come in contact with anything that's would be considered pollution. So that gets discharged right into the infiltration basin. And there's a smaller infiltration trench that's here right? This is, the well is here, right? This is the 400 feet around the well. That's why you were talking about where the town made the taking. They took it from here and they took it from here. We're sending the water in this direction, and then we're having this infiltration trench, which is taking the backs of these houses, and it's also taking, you can see that there's swales that go to it. It's also taking the runoff from the yards. Okay, and now I forgot the second part of your question. What's
Ice
about-
and snow.
So ice and snow, I would say, is simply handled by finding, instead of sodium chloride, calcium chloride, finding de-icing chemicals that are friendly to the environment.
How are they going to, regulate that?
Well, as I said, you have the power, the town has the power by, under this provision here, and through the implementation of putting that into the condo documents, right, that has to be done. So I know you chuckle, but if the town really wants to be serious about this, you can make sure that this would happen, right? You can have penalties in there. There's all sorts of things that can be placed into these condo documents to ensure that the things that you want to have happen, as long as they're reasonable, requirements that make sense for the well and all, that they get done. There's no reason why you can't do that. So in other words, if you had somebody who was a, designated person and they just happened to be out there and a truck full of salt went by and they took a sample and it was sodium chloride, those people get penalized. They pay a fine, whatever. That's why I say it does have, in a sense, a leg up over, a bunch of single-family houses that you really can't control that much. But, I'm just here to explain it to you, so. But, we've done this, maybe not to this extent, but we've done this in many locations where there's been some sort of sensitive receptor. Usually it has to do with flooding and that sort of stuff, where we've, put all sorts of easements and things like that on the properties. But
Commissioner Bott?
Thank you, John, for that explanation.
okay, Mr. Fasano, thank you.
Commissioner Abbott? Do you have any questions?
No, I had snow and ice was going to be a clause I had.
And as I said, as you think of it, if we're not, I'm not a bad guy. I mean, as you think, and I don't know anything, everything, obviously, none of us do. We do have the guy, geoscience, who is, more trained in this and is a scientist versus an engineer. I think the scientists theoretically, right, they're a lot smarter than us. But if you think of, scenarios or things that should go into these documents, I think if you just went on, if you just Googled NIPTES and read the federal government's requirements for a SWIP, you'd see all the stuff that they require in there during construction, after construction. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive. It kind of gives you a good idea of things that I would not have thought about if I hadn't done a bunch of those SWIPs and submitted them to the federal government. So.
Anyone else has a question? Commissioner? No? Thank you for time.
Okay, thank you.
I'm all set.
Okay. Do public is here to talk about this project? Anyone from public want to talk about it? Sure. Please.
Sure. David Vlasic, 31 Darwin Lane. I just had a quick question. Has this board received copies of Scott Horsley's presentation to the ZBA?
I don't think so, no.
Not in this meeting.
It has not, okay. I'll make sure to send that out tomorrow to discuss. He's a hydrologist that has done work on this project.
Okay.
And would be very helpful for you to read. So that's it. I'll have it out to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's it. So we close this subject?
The only thing that I would say about Scott Horsley's report, and Scott Horsley's a smart guy, but he's sort of hanging his hat on the fact that in the zoning that I gave you, it says that the geoscience guy or whoever it is going to write something to say that the water, groundwater, will not be degraded. And his thing that he said to the zoning board is, well, there's no definition for that, and what is it? And so he goes to the local dictionary and gets a definition. But my point on that is that phrase has already been defined by the town of Walpole. And so that was my point. The town of Walpole, through either the zoning board or the planning board, because the zoning board used to give the special permit, now it's the planning board, for that same section, right? They've given numerous special permits with regard to that exact phrase. Not just the dozen or so that I've done. There's been plenty of others in this town. And I didn't write the zoning, but if I did write the zoning, I probably would have separated Area 1 and Area 2 from Area 3 and Area 4. They don't. It's all the same language. So that phrase has already been defined by the action of the town granting these numerous special permits under the same section of the bylaw with the same words. So probably the abutters don't want to hear that, or you guys don't want to hear that, but that's a fact. They've given out numerous, not just 2 or 3 or 5, probably 50 if I had to guess. Okay, so that's all. Thanks.
I'm Tom White from 20 Darwin Lane, and my question to John would, how many of them are within 425 feet of the well water?
So Mr. White, my point is...
No, I'm asking the question, have you provided to the board all these projects you tell me about that have had this kind of density in an area, and it's going to put at risk the water table for Walpole, that are within 425 feet? I'd like to see that. If you can give me a list of half a dozen that have 30 units going in there that's going to be within 25 feet of the Zone 1, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
So, just to answer Mr. White's question, obviously none, okay? But here's what I'm telling the board here. There's no difference in the zoning, whether you're right next to the well in Area 1, or whether you're, 1,000 feet from the well in Area 3. There's no difference in the town's zoning. So it would be, Mr. White, it would be similar.
I disagree with the sense is, are you gonna guarantee there's gonna be no
Yeah, I'm
impact on the water?
Please.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, it would be similar to this, right? I live in Walpole. I live in Residence B zone. So the side setback is 15 feet. So if my neighbor wanted to build a house 15
Yeah,
feet
well, it's 8
from...
feet too.
If my neighbor wanted to build a house 15 feet from my lot line, I can't go running down to the building inspector and say, look, he's gonna be too close, I've got something there or whatever. It's 15 feet, that's my point. I'm sorry to have to tell you that, but if you read the zoning, and the zoning is a bylaw, so it's the laws the town have to follow. If you read the zoning, unfortunately, there's no difference between 1, 2, 3, 4. Everyone had to do the same thing. The town constantly approved it, or oftentimes approved it. So I think
Mr.
What
John,
kind of
I think
stuff?
we haven't received the zoning board letter or their suggestions on this project, so we'll wait for them for next meeting or whenever it comes on our agenda.
Yeah,
So,
are you asking me if you,
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
requiring you to
yeah.
vote tonight? I'm not
No,
requiring you
I
to
don't
do
think-
anything. I just came
I
down here
don't think
to.
there's any motion to vote here because we have only received one letter from Tetra Tech. There's no other information. for
Right,
us.
so there will be, so it is a public record. I can send it to you, or you can get it from Patrick DeShane. But, so there's Mr. Reardon's letter, and then there's my response, and then there's and then after we met in the town hall with Mr. Reardon, and then there's another set of responses. And it's all on one letter. It should be like in color, right? His is his letter, and then my response is in green, and then my response is in red. If you have that, it sort of gives you a chain of what's going on. But,
Terry should be able to.
Yeah, so, yeah. we can-
yeah, if you can't, I mean, it's public record now, so you can get it, if you can't get it from Patrick, I'm sure you can, but you can get it from myself, because Patrick's on the email chain, so, okay. But I'm not asking for anyone to
No,
vote on.
we
I was
don't have
just,
that document with us. We don't have any comment from the zoning board. So we'll just keep the discussion to Tetra Tech letter.
yeah.
And then we'll
Yeah.
take that matter in the next meetings.
Yeah, and I think, you would be better served if you sort of let Tetra Tech, let that process kind of go through a little bit
Which
between
is-
them and myself, and you can kind of monitor that, and then we'll see where that goes. I think
Sounds
that
good.
makes a lot of sense.
Great.
Okay, all right, thanks.
We'll close the subject. Anything? Okay. Thank you. We'll close the subject.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next,
You can get John back there. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
He tried to stage a coup, but we prevented him from doing it.
there's just one letter. There's nothing much, to talk about.
Gotta watch out for these guys.
My pumping letter next.
Okay, yeah, we have memo 11/3/23, Bill Abbott, the pumping.
I think the only thing, and, because it's color-coded, you can see, we've run a streak of, below historical levels, which we're a little bit more than a third of the way in, but hopefully that'll change. But it is what it is at this point, so,
It's going like 94% of average.
yeah.
Well, our pumping is, of course, directly related to our revenue.
Yes.
The important part of that is not how much water we pump, really. It's how we doing this year vis-à-vis last year, and are we on target for meeting our revenue needs?
Well, I think I mentioned in the previous time, because I've just added another month
did.
to this.
Yes, you
But when we set the rates for FY '24, we didn't say we're gonna duplicate what we did for production in FY '25, '23, which you can see, it was all above. We did say, no, we're not gonna have a drought and use lots and lots of water. So at this point, I think that we're probably still okay on revenue.
That's
Your
the
point's
answer.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But, I think it's useful to see what has happened in the past and how it does have some correlation to revenue, so.
But
If
the
you say
year
so.
average, Bill, is like October, that's for all the months to October. It's not just for October, right?
It's looking at the
It's just
previous
linearly?
3 years worth of, in October.
Okay, so it's going horizontal,
Yeah.
not vertical.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, there's really nothing that we can do. It's just something one should be aware of. And when we have lots of rain, it makes sense, people aren't going to use a lot of outside water. And when you have a drought, surprise, surprise, more is used. So it's, the only reason I've been doing this is just so you can see, I don't know that anybody remembers 2019 all that well, whether, what the conditions were, so.
Good point. Okay, everybody all right with that? Then we have the 11/7/23 breakout for the revenue.
So I think the numbers are like, as Superintendent told us that the bill for the last fiscal year went, and we have like almost $2.2 million for
The-
water.
the actual,
and
yeah.
and 1.8 from sewer. So we'll know more as we move along.
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about doing is, we don't get the revenue 1/12 of it every month.
Yeah.
There's high months, there's low months, as one would expect. And right now, you would be getting, they would be the tail end of the summer months is what the bills that are be coming in next.
Tail end of June or
Yeah,
most of June?
it could be June, July, and August. Bills are what we're going to be starting to see, so. And certainly, when you get into the spring, you're going to be getting, December, January, February, slower. So I wanted to just see if is it visually, you can see that it's not, it goes like this, it goes up and down, but, heading towards, hopefully meeting the budget, so.
Now we have the Family Funway, Washington Street, to Washington Street, Foxborough, but they are hooked up to us, to Walpole.
Just for sewer.
Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, if we wanted to vote tonight to terminate service, I know in water, you can just turn off, everybody has a valve, but sewer, I'm thinking mine, it goes to the main. How does one stop that?
Shut the water off.
We don't control their water. Other than I can think you put a balloon in the sewer pipe.
Can I say
to
something here?
stop.
We had this discussion
Yes,
years and years and years ago,
right,
okay, where there was a case that we're talking about right now.
yeah.
Now, this guy came before us pleading, I can see him, but I can't remember his name. Okay, so, and he's right there. So we gave him the sewer connection, all right? But what we decided was the remedy for him not paying or subsequent owners not paying is to lien the property. We have the right to lien that property. So if we lien it, because you really can't go out there and dig a hole, and you can't do that. So we basically have no choice but to lien it. So we just lien the property.
Well, I guess.
We asked
is
the
a
town
way to
administrator
encourage-
to have the legal team put a lien on it,
Well, and they have
and
done
evenally,
this.
we'll get the money with interest.
Yeah,
If it may take 10 or 20 years,
right.
we're going to get the
To
money, or we're
encourage-
going to get the property.
To encourage them to pay, I wanted to know, is there a way that we could stop them from using our sewer?
Yeah, you can send them threatening letters, but in the end,
No, I understand. I can know you
so,
can
I mean,
send a
what do you
letter.
want to know? You're going to send them, poison pin letters until,
No. I'm
Okay,
thinking
what?
If, in the case of water. if
I know,
you're
we're not
paying-
talking about
I
water.
understand,
Forget
but there is a
that.
way.
Forget
I'm
that.
just
We know about
inquiring,
water.
is
We know
there
how
a-
to do that. We turn it off.
Right.
But,
I'm
and the
inquiring-
sewer,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, in the end, You lien the property.
That has been done. It has been leaned. I'm just asking, is there a way to do the equivalent that we can do on water?
No.
And sewer?
No. And you'd have all kinds of trouble with that, because
I
you'd
think
have
there'd be
backups, you'd have,
Issues with health. You shut the sewer off and but you have no control over the water and the water's still on. That
But
could
you
be
tell the
bad.
Board of Health
And-
3 days from today, we've given them time to do it. We are terminating the sewer and that this facility will not have sewer, and have the Board of Health go and tell, did you pay them? Because if you're not, you're shut down because you don't have sewer.
Yeah,
which
they'll
Board of
lose it.
Health?
Foxborough.
And they're gonna agree with you.
Well, they would say, they don't care how it's done, I think they would say,
You have no control of what they're gonna say.
No, but they don't want a health accident.
they don't
Yeah,
want a
they
health
don't,
accident.
but the thing is,
Well, they may decide we'll take the health accident,
I'm telling you, the legal solution to this
and it has been leased.
is to lien it.
It has.
Yeah, and
I'm
that's it.
asking, is there a way, something that, as you say, might be 10 years, might be 20 years, might be whoever knows, willing to get our money,
Or you'll get the property.
or the property
Is
is.
there a meter here?
In Foxborough, they have town sewer.
So you get their meter data to produce the bill?
Yes,
So they're still using it?
yes. It, like was mentioned before, it's kind of hard to shut the sewer off unless there's a valve there. And you do that up just out of the blue, you're gonna cause an issue.
Do we know if their water's in arrears with the town of Foxborough?
I believe not. I can find that out. It's a sewer issue with Walpole.
Yeah.
What their condition is with Foxborough, I'm not sure, but I can find out.
You know, Scott, maybe we should have put a valve on it. We could do that. Put a gate valve on the sewer,
It's possible.
but we didn't.
Doesn't mean that it's our sewer.
You could put a gate valve on it, you could.
Well, I'm just saying, and, because
But what we had decided when we granted him that was that we would lien the property.
I can speak with the superintendent,
Is the
water.
property being
Foxborough.
used today? I mean, are they
I'm not sure.
actively doing functions or?
I'm not sure if this is old bills or not.
This usually happens when they're in transition, Jeff. Usually there's somebody else who's planning to do something else there, but they just, it's maybe 6 or 9 months. And the old guy doesn't want to pay anything. He's stuck, he's losing money or whatever. It's typical.
And this information is up to March 11th of this year.
they owe a lot of money.
No, he can't sell that property.
What?
He can't sell it.
If you put the lien up.
No,
But
right.
This letter is dated December 7th, 2023. So we haven't put it, isn't it? Or is it?
I know I would talk to the collector, and, they're particularly interested because they're got somebody who's not paying, but. at
No,
least-
which is fine, but I just want to clarify, so the lien has to be put, it's not been put yet.
It hasn't been issued. It has not been issued.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, but they've verified that they can do it and all.
Okay.
And it's one thing, it's easier if you're doing it within the town, apparently. I guess there was some question if it was outside of the town, a town leaning property elsewhere. And that, I know that the collector had to do some investigation and finally decided, or was determined that, yeah, we could. Now, where we stand in line, I don't know, but,
So shall we make a motion to approve this lien? Or do we have to?
Sure.
I just got a question. So when Rick asked for it to be put on the agenda, it was termination of sewer service for non-payment.
and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's what I had in my head. I'm like, how do you do that? I mean, we'd have to dig it up, put a valve.
Right.
How does that cost?
And exactly where you're gonna dig it up, though. It's on Route
Well, I don't know, it must be somewhere on
Where
the
we
town
hook up
property.
in Walpole?
1. Yeah.
Water Street, I guess, or I'm not sure, where does it come across?
Can we
Is it
charge
there,
them
or
for that work?
does it go
Put it
under,
on the-
under the highway? It must go under the highway, it's on the other side of Route 1. Do you know where?
I think, yeah, I think it goes towards, it goes north, I believe.
Is it like towards the Boynton School, or, which is a little bit north of where Water Street comes into it.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the sewer map. Just right here.
Take a quick
Right in your way.
look.
Take a look.
Take a quick look.
Huge piece of property.
Don't you think it's more like a short term, though? I don't think this will go on for more than a year. You know, it's just I think it's a transition period. These properties go and they go down and they come back up.
I guess I'd be interested how long they haven't been paying. Is
That's
it,
it.
we're just,
2 years.
does it,
2022, 2023.
2 years.
I'm not sure if
After
that,
it's
if it
closed,
doesn't
I
go,
don't
if
think-
that's
yeah.
all that they have to look. I'd like to see how, if it goes any further. What do you see there, Scott?
It goes south and then under the highway, goes out to.
It comes out to where?
Yeah, to. Goes past Walpole Park South down Pine Street.
Okay.
Okay, that's a ways. Pine Street, that's,
No, that's right there.
Pine Street is where Rojo car.
This is right there. This is
Funway is, it's.
20, this is
It used to
a
have a
quarter of a
big-
mile away.
The mint,
Go-kart
like the
and
steakhouse mint.
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
after that,
Bill Bernard, what was it called, Bernard?
No, that was, I think Bernardi's was.
No,
one.
no, Bernardi was the old avenue. Dimitri's, is
Yes.
that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is-
Dimitri's Funway next to the vet there?
Yeah, but it's, the Pine Street is further north. It's not, it's
Not
nothing
that far.
No, it's not going north, it's going south,
going south.
right?
No, there's Pine Street.
Yeah.
There's the property.
And I say, this way is south.
This is the
that's north.
property.
Yeah,
This is south.
but Pine.
That's north.
So he's saying, you were saying it was going towards Pine Street?
Okay, it's going north.
It's going down, it's going north, yeah, you're right, it's going north
Yeah,
down
going
Pine
north.
Street.
And
Right.
that's a considerable distance. So it
Yeah,
crosses
there's
it
other-
and then along the, I assume it's not under Route 1. It's-
Yeah, but you've got a ton of other businesses being serviced there. You got Dry Creek, you got Pathfinder, you got the old motel there,
Mhm.
you got the truck
Yeah.
dealership.
So you got Ganawati pumping across Pine Street, same
Yeah.
way.
Well,
I don't think the town's hurting for money on that. I mean, basically, couldn't they, if they really wanted the cash, they could sell the lien.
I think they'd want
And
just
they get
cash.
the mo-
They'd like to get it now as opposed to waiting the 20 years.
Is there a market for liens?
Oh, they say there is.
Okay.
Anyways,
So we're making a motion to authorize the lien?
Yeah.
Did
That's
somebody
pretty
make a
easy.
motion?
we make a motion to authorize the lien of the
Second.
dues. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded by Pradeep and Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
You abstain. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 401.
yeah,
Okay.
so you just record it even though it's not effective for, till December?
Now, we have something here on the MWRA connection.
I have a meeting, a Zoom meeting coming up this Thursday. If they talk about anything concerning the water connections, I will send you an email. Okay? But I think right now, it seems that the agenda they sent me, it's concerning about discharge permits and their new federal regulations vis-à-vis the different towns that are discharging not just sewerage, but also, they're called CSOs, combined sewage outflows. It's surface water mixed with sewage, which just makes a mess. So-
John, on the meeting that we had, that you and I attended with the Norwood folks and the MWA, Pleasant Street came up. Were we going to look at something? I know they thought that was a spot that hadn't been addressed. Scott, do you know if we've looked at to see if using Pleasant Street as a spot for connection,
That was
We have-
one of the original
Yeah.
locations.
and we decided it's not, because there's no
I think-
place to put a,
Well, it's the infrastructure
Meter.
too. Part of it was the pump station
Yeah.
location. That There's really no place to situate it.
So the direction is Route 1.
That's what we're looking at, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, Bill, you were saying you're concerned about going across the highway, but I think the water's already across the highway.
Yeah.
It's already on Dunkin' Donuts
yeah.
Right.
side
No,
of the road.
that, yeah, I
so-
was just, I remember Pleasant Street as they were mentioning, that was looked like a real good spot from Norwood's standpoint. I think it was newer water, it's a big main, and et cetera, et cetera. And from our standpoint, it was, oh, well, we don't have a place to put a pump or a meter.
Our staff probably has good surveillance on that, or why not?
Yeah.
I mean, Pat brought up the good thing that he knew the cemetery was there and the extra land was there, but that isn't the end of it. I mean, it's the other infrastructure and the piping and how much and when. So I think it's probably, I'd rather know, if we're going Route 1, let's go Route 1,
Yeah.
let's keep this ball moving.
Route 1 has the advantages that MWRA already has property right there with the gate for the storage and the meter and things that are in that lot. So maybe that lot could be expanded or,
There were some other advantages from the Norwood's viewpoint also, yeah.
You get redundancy because they have the shared emergency line.
Yeah.
And they have pressure reducing down there because they have so much prep. So there's plenty of, it's not gonna be an issue, what we're asking for. That's the good thing.
All right, and this letter states that Stantec has done the modeling, but they have not yet reached out to us. This only came in middle of last week.
So they haven't done, yeah.
They have it done, but they have not reached out to
Yeah.
provide it.
The other thing, that they were doing it based on that we would be taking the water starting at 7 PM till 7 AM in the morning to refill our tanks. And we were saying, oh, we'd like to look at it as, we could take it at any time during the day or night. And that played a role because it looked, if you were doing it it looks like you're taking 1 million gallons a day. If you're reducing it down to a 12-hour period, you gotta look at it as if you're taking 2 million gallons a day.
well, Commissioner Abbott, you know, we could just buy the water from Norwood.
No?
If you want to make it simple.
That's the emergency connection.
No, you could just buy their water. In other words, you have a right to buy water from towns. So they own that water that's coming into their town.
Yeah.
They could just sell it to us.
I have to look to see.
I have to look at the original contract though, to see if
Yeah,
it's,
what their, the operations policy number 10, if there's anything.
well, I'm thinking of
in there.
NWRA, because I remember the aqueduct comes from Bellevue Tower
Yeah.
right down to their line.
Yeah,
And the Commonwealth paid for that. That's a big, big line.
yeah.
So I don't know if if the water coming into their town is their property.
Yeah, I don't know that.
If it is, then they could just sell it to us
Yeah.
as needed.
Okay, well,
If you can trust them into the future.
Well, that's a
Depends
problem.
how many times we
Well, you
pick
can
up
make,
football.
you can make a contract with them.
we're gonna have to pay extra anyways for using the
Start
pipe to
charging
get
for
it.
the
Well, there's gonna be a wheeling fee.
Yeah.
Your water tax on the football tickets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we know, Scott, when we'll have our next meeting with Weston and Sampson, giving us an update? We have it every other month, it seems.
Yeah, I don't have a firm date, but I can find that out too.
You know,
When
it's
you want.
summer, but, you
But
know,
I appreciate you pushing on that, Bill, because I think our staff, they know what site we're doing now. They can start looking at the location.
well, that's, you're looking at
We
the
can,
chart.
we didn't need to wait for their consultant to
Yeah.
look on our side of the, get everything ready.
Yeah, that's why I've been continually saying, is there any of these things on the chart that we can start? And I just want to, if we have those meetings, then we get the opportunity to find out, oh, yes, everything is, or no, they took the summer off. What?
So when Stantec reaches out with the modeling for Union Street,
Yeah.
it might be the appropriate time to have another meeting.
Or we can inquire, which in case it wasn't on their priority
Right,
list,
exactly.
that if we asked, maybe they'll say, oh, maybe we better get on that as opposed to whatever else they're working on. So,
Yeah, I told Terry, this Cassandra Albert, to let her know when she sends us emails to put down Weston and Sampson, an MWA project, because
Yep.
I got that, made her laugh. My spam got that letter, Barnyard Sarah, Norwood hookup, so the computer. Thought that's some kind of I had no idea it was from the, from Weston and Sampson. So I said, make sure you put Weston and Sampson on there when you send us these notices. Okay. Jarvis Farm.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had my land lawyer look at this, and just because, we're not getting the contracts we used to get, and I'm a little perturbed about that, but anyway, I had read in the paper about this, and he did send me, the town administrator sent me, the actual proposal, RFP, and I had my lawyer look at it, and to see if there was anything that would be important to tell the town administrator. And she did make a few comments, which I did send to the town administrator. So that's all I have to say on this.
Well, I mentioned to Scott, it seems that part of the problem was not just where is the lines that we owed, but where was there wetlands that we can't put a parking lot on. That's what I wanted to see. And I don't know if this survey company says, we don't do wetlands. I know there are people who...
Well, you should, if you have those concerns, you should tell the town administrator.
Well, I brought it to Scott, our
Okay.
agent there.
Do you know where you can get it? We have a conservation department and a conservation agent, and they're very ready to go out to somebody's yard, find out their wetlands and point them out to them and pick them up on a flag. So maybe you could ask the conservation department. They have maps
Yeah.
that are produced from aerial photos, which are generally the wetland lines,
Yeah.
which they could get us immediately, and then they could go out with those maps and look and give us a very good idea without having it delineated. She may also know somebody, I think the agent in Westwood does delineations part-time, because you can run, they can be very expensive or very inexpensive, it depends on who you
Yeah.
get.
Well, I know if you look at, it's one thing to look at like a wetlands map, as opposed to you get out there and you go, all right, skunk cabbage, 2 skunk cabbage, all right, the line is in between these things, and they put a flag or whatever. My concern is that one of the issues was not only, it was, were you gonna be putting a parking lot on some wetlands? We wanted to make sure that we knew where that was, in addition to where the actual property lines, which I didn't think there was an issue on that, but anyways, I passed that on to Scott, so we can see that we get that addressed somehow.
Right.
Okay, and then we have.
Are we approving that spend, or?
I think that comes out of professional services, is the
Yeah,
budget
so-
line.
Liz, you're saying
For
the boundary lines, you're not interested in doing the survey?
No, we want to find out what was preventing us from, we had a diagram of where we wanted to put the parking lot. DEP said, oh no, that's a problem. We were saying, oh no, you don't understand where the line, I thought this was going to come and delineate exactly so that everybody be working on the same page of as where things are and where we wanted to put the parking lot, so that we can continue on.
Yeah, but see the wording here, boundary line
Yeah.
survey?
It's not a parking lot survey.
No, it's not, but when we came, if you remember, Rick or somebody in the engineering says, all right, here's where we're gonna put the thing, and then DEP said, no, you can't do that, because, there was issues of, I thought, there was some wetlands issues. I didn't think we had an issue of where we owned the property or not.
Because that's the reverse.
That's what this
But this one
alludes
does not say,
to.
but this survey does not say that they are going to find.
Well, that's what I was asking Scott
That was the
about.
purpose of the survey.
That was my
Right.
concern. I didn't, we want to be able to address the issues that DEP either correctly has identified or incorrectly But, you know, at this point, we can't build that parking lot without, I guess, DEP saying it's okay.
Well, you know, our engineering department, they're very talented in that stuff. I think they still do survey work. I mean, maybe they could take the meets and bounds maps from the deeds that we have and the plans they already have on Adams, on Jarvis Farm, and go out there and put some markers in where the property lines are, and then we can have a delineator come out and just pay for that service to delineate the wetlands.
I agree.
Instead of
I
paying
just-
for a first-class survey that is gonna solve our problem.
That's all I want is that I'd like us to come up with the answers so that we can take the next step.
Right.
That's all I'm interested in. When I read the thing, it seemed to me that some wetlands was an issue, and I saw no
Right.
mention of that. That's why I brought it to Scott's attention that we want, whether we do it, pay for somebody else to do it or whatever, we want to make sure that we address whatever the real problem between us and DEP is. Otherwise, we haven't taken a step forward to addressing the parking issue.
It's a good point. And you're right, DEP cares more about what, they don't care who owns the property, they care about the wetlands. They don't care where your property line is.
Yeah.
If you wait for the wetlands, they're gonna leave you alone.
So are we approving this proposal or are we asking
I
to
don't
change
know.
this?
Pat your person didn't evaluate the pricing.
What my lawyer did was just look at the proposal.
Yeah.
That's what I sent her. And she made some comments which I passed on to the town administrator concerning the proposal.
And I bet it had nothing to do whether the wetlands was
has-
mentioned or not.
if I
didn't think so.
recall-
I just said, I
Again,
thought that was an issue,
ag-
and I
again.
didn't see it there.
Look at the title of this.
Yeah, no, I understand.
All right,
Yeah.
so
You
you know.
wanna send a letter to the conservation agent and ask her about,
No, I just want,
Can we,
you know,
can we get clarification from Rick what the actual issue was when we brought it to the DEP? She
Yes.
responded back specifically about, hey, the location of that, you know, doesn't fit in with the use of, I don't know what it was, but, like, what was the issue and will this site plan address that issue?
Right,
As far as where this parking lot can be laid out?
right.
That's
What's the
what we want.
holdup?
And as long as that survey addresses that,
That survey doesn't. This one,
yeah.
that's just the bounds of the whole
This is a
property.
boundary.
yeah. So we want to we want to get resolve the
Like the
issue
abutting
between
landowners.
the town and DEP as to where the parking lot can be located. Whether we have to spend some money or not, obviously if we do, we'd like to make sure it's a reasonable amount, but.
We can send DEP the official boundary of the site and say to them, where do you think a parking lot would be appropriate?
oh, no.
All right.
So, okay. Meters to cash,
No question, I think we received the update that last fiscal year bills have gone out. So we'll wait for update for next current quarters, next month.
next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we ready for a minute, motion to adjourn?
I just have one comment. Since our last meeting, we did lose a former commissioner. Back in the '70s, Ron
Oh,
Fusil.
that's true.
What is it?
Ron Fusil, we lost
He
him
passed
since our
away?
last meeting. He passed away.
Oh,
He was
I
a
didn't-
former commissioner
Yeah.
back
Yeah,
in
he
the
was,
'70s.
long time
I
ago.
just
Wow.
thought I'd, you know,
Thanks. Yeah, I like to say one thing, though, in my little talk, I want to be clear that our two people here, Scott and Tricia, is doing fine. And I have no problems with you people and anything about this. I realize you work for other people, pass stuff down to you, and you're like the middleman. You're like the people at the hospital in Palestine. The rebels are behind you, using you as shields. So I have no problems with you guys at all, and I appreciate your efforts, okay?
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Motion moved
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0-0, we're out of here.